Here in
Essential for me as a student.
I can easily monitor my grades,
Helps me in my class in all aspects.
make the learning process better and efficient.
Helped us to refresh our memories outside of the classroom.
Timely tool a teacher can ever have.
Sometimes I'm sacrificing time away from school, but with the help of Canvas, I can track my standing in the class. This app is a must for us students to improve and maximize our learning potential.
It allows me to have private communication with my students without the need to use any social media accounts, and Canvas helps me maintain professionalism with my students.
We use Canvas on a daily basis, especially when we have homework or classroom activities.
I use this application every day. Overall, Canvas is a unique tool or methodology in a teaching-learning process.
As a working student, I tend to miss some class, but with Canvas, it helps me to keep up with lessons that I missed. The app notifies us, students, if there are new lessons uploaded by our professors or there's homework to do.
As a student, in cases whereby there are no classes or school is cancelled due to an unexpected event, Canvas makes it possible for students to have discussion and share their opinion on any given topic at all.
Canvas is very useful in terms of marking students' assignments using the speed grader and rubric.
Canvas, teacher-driven learning.
Here in FEU, we stand for future-ready learning. For continued education, not just for our students, but also for ourselves. Because by learning more about our students, we learn how to be better educators. For educational innovations. Because better, more responsive teaching techniques that put emphasis on learning instead of just passing help our students be better prepared for the future. For turning knowledge into wisdom, not just accumulating it, so we can fulfill the potential of every student to be a future leader, and not just an achiever. We are FEU, and we stand for a future-ready generation. We stand for future-ready learning.
The university is surrounded by lush greenery, which makes the environment very pleasant.
Participating in various student organizations has given me a wide variety of leadership skills.
The teaching methods, along with the learning culture, has made me well-equipped to talk the board exam.
We can experience a variety of extracurricular activities throughout the semester.
English is used as the medium of instruction in most of our classes to help prepare students for work both here and abroad.
As faculty of FEU, we engage in ongoing research, encourage scholarly discussions, and contribute in academic publications.
I was able to get a job right after graduation thanks to FEU's collaborations and industry partners.
The University Student Exchange Program gave me the opportunity to study in another country, to broaden my horizon, and to experience new cultures.
Connectivity is available in every part of the university, from the classrooms to the park, canteen, and even the hallway.
The university is well equipped with specialized learning spaces such as nursing rooms, a mock hotel, and even a TV studio. This gives you a close to real-life experience.
I really believe that FEU can bring out the best in all of us.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the third day of our faculty training for wired flexible learning. This is a project of the Far Eastern University and CHED, HIEd Bayanihan project. So we're on day 3, and I hope everyone is doing okay. I'm a bit worried about those from Masbate because yesterday they were struck by an earthquake, and I hope you're all right. One or two of our participants are from Masbate, and I guess the other areas in the Visayas have also felt the earthquake. So I hope you're all okay, you're doing fine, and you're ready for day 3. So today we will start with the presentation of Dr. Maria Teresa Rivera, the head of our FEU CHED HIEd Bayanihan Training Project. She will recap what has happened over yesterday's session. At the same time, she has a few announcements. Probably it will allay your fears or anxiety. So I will now give the floor to Dr. Mayet Rivera. Mayet?
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, maayong buntag. Magandang umaga po and sa ating mga kasama na nasa Mindanao at nasa BARM. Assalamualaikum. I hope you're having a very, very good day ngayon despite po sa mga nireport sa atin ng ating mga participants that there was an earthquake yesterday and I think it's a 6.1 magnitude. So sana po we've given some messages to our participants who reported to us while we were having a session yesterday. So sana po lahat ay safe ngayon in their own homes or wherever you are, and we hope that you will be again starting this day with us fully at wala po tayong ibang mararamdaman uli na earthquake or any other mga unforeseen circumstances. So maraming salamat po. Umpisa pa lang, nagpapasalamat na kami na nandito po tayo ngayon lahat at nag-good morning po lahat sa live event Q&A natin ng ating mga participants. Okay, I will do a recap of the training sessions day 2. Yesterday, we had already 2 days, and as you can see, I just would like to bring up the slide before that I placed sa last 2 trainings or last 2 days natin. We had gone through the last 2 days on part 1, integrating content knowledge and education technology. Actually, ito po yung overall, this is the overall purpose of this partnership between FEU and CHED HIEd Bayanihan project. It is to enable you, our faculty from different HIEd institutions, higher educational institutions, to integrate content knowledge and education technology in the new normal right now. As we open our classes, we will be having blended, flexible, and synchronous and asynchronous learning environment. So we went through the first part, and then part 2 po ngayon na, mag-uumpisa na, we are midweek. We will be learning skills to effectively guide our students and of course motivate them to achieve course learning outcomes. We had that, and to assess student performance in an online remote learning environment. So this training until the end will enable us to accomplish these 2 parts, and hopefully we will be able to promote or show our experiences and our learnings towards the end of this training. Okay, again, rundown lang po tayo ng topics. I showed this yesterday, but for those who are just coming in again today, yung pong hindi nakalag in yesterday, we went through the 2 days with overviews and designing of CELOS yesterday and CIB. Today, we will be having these 2 sessions, the teaching and learning online for declarative and functioning knowledge-based CELOS and using LMS in online delivery for both of these knowledge areas. And later on, tomorrow, we will be learning how, in the afternoon, we will be learning how to assess and grade declarative and functional knowledge. Medyo may correction po pala ng konti. I didn't see the little correction there. That's August 19 p.m. po ang assessing and grading declarative and functioning knowledge. Tomorrow po sa AM and PM are our performance presentation and performance-based assessments. And by the morning of August 21, we will be exploring online presentation and again, performance-based assessment platforms. And sa hapon po, do not miss it, you will be having breakout sessions with each of your, meron po tayong mga teacher experts who will guide you in your presentations and will also guide you in whatever questions that you still might have in our training. So wag niyo pong i-miss yung breakout sessions natin in the afternoon. And of course, that's our closing ceremonies towards the end of the afternoon. Okay, the recap lang po ng day 2 sessions. Just like any training, we always have a recap. Yesterday po, we had CELO, or the designing of the course expected learning outcome for online learning. So naging objectives po nun ay nag-articulate tayo what a course expected learning outcome is. We applied the different learning principles in designing CELOs. You tried it in your exercises yesterday. I think you saw that, and kinorek po ni Sir Angelo yung mga at pinoint out niya yung mga guidelines in designing CELOs, and we constructed to construct CELOs aligned with your school's core competencies. So we hope po nare-review din ninyo kung ano yung inyong university or school's core competencies with this session yesterday. So it covered CELO. It covered the characteristics of a meaningful and effective CELO and how to construct a CELO using Bloom's digital taxonomy. Okay, for the session after that, we had the CIB, or Course Information Booklet. And the objectives of that is to articulate what a CIB is, explain the different components of the CIB, and construct your CIB. Although hindi natin po kukonstructin, kinonstruct yesterday right there and then, kasi ganun po ang ano natin, session is just designed to give you the ideas and a sample. I think our speaker yesterday gave you a sample, FEU sample of a CIB. Okay, how will you apply it? What did it cover yesterday? Meron nga po tayong difference between a CIB and a course outline. It was clarified. And then the parts or the components of a CIB. And then yun nga po, our speaker had given a sample CIB outline, and you downloaded it for you to maybe check how your CIB is coming along, or how you would be able to draft your own CIB. So how do you apply it po? Apply it by designing your online CIB, no? A CIB that will cover the online learning environment na po ngayon. So making course instruction and assessments, integrating strategies for course delivery, and nagbigay po ng tips sa mga speakers natin mula umaga hanggang afternoon. Ano po yung mga learning platforms and what you can do to enable your teaching to fit into the online environment. So yan po, let's integrate those strategies for your course delivery online or on flexible learning mode, and design a scheme of student workload, again, based on the flexible learning options that you will be presenting in that CIB. So ngayon po, I'd like to just stress that the CIB, or the course information booklet, is our final output. So we'd like you to design your online course information booklet, and that will be tailored for the flexible learning option or the flexible learning environment. And it is highly encouraged if you can upload your CIB on Moodle. The link to your Moodle, or the link to the Moodle, is given to you po via email. So all of our accepted participants will get a Moodle link where you can use, or you can upload, no? Yung po yung tanong kahapon, saan i-upload ang CIB? I-upload po natin sa inyong Moodle beginning Thursday to Friday, August 21, 2020. We're encouraging po that you, kahit po yung the best that you can do lang, no? Kahit hindi na po yun yung talagang perfect na perfect. Pero at least po, fill upan ninyo ang bawat parts nung binigay sa inyong sample ni Miss Andrea yesterday. And if you can upload it from Thursday to Friday on your Moodle, so that Miss Andrea and the panel of our Institute of Education speakers will be able to check and hindi naman po makokomentan lahat, but we will be giving guide posts or mga tips po to improve your CIB. So the CIB is the final output of this training. So we highly encourage that you will be able to submit it at least po hanggang Friday para po before the end, no? At least before lunch, before the end of our closing ceremonies or the end of our session. So ngayon po, August 19, third day na tayo. So the session will be covering, and on the next slide, you will see that it will cover today Module 4, Teaching and Learning Online, Declarative and Functioning Knowledge-Based CELOS. So the objectives of which will be to articulate what declarative and functioning knowledge is, construct declarative and functioning knowledge-based CELOS, explain methods that can be used to teach declarative and functioning knowledge-based CELOS online, and apply teaching methods in designing learning activities for this declarative and functioning knowledge. So importante po that in that session, okay, we are able to understand what is declarative and functioning knowledge and to construct it and put it in our CELOS. Next po. We will have a tech shop also in the morning. So you will be using Moodle as our LMS for now. For those po using Canvas or Google Hangout, Moodle is the open source application po natin. So pwede po yang ma-apply and explain po ng speaker natin later on if how you will be able to adjust from the different learning management system platforms. So using LMS in online delivery for declarative and functioning knowledge, and we will be creating modules online, hopefully within the time period. And in the afternoon, you will have assessing and grading online. We will be having the dean of our Institute of Education, nonetheless, no, who will give us the different assessment and grading functions, no, or objectives. So you will be selecting the most appropriate assessment tool for the constructed declarative and functioning knowledge-based CELO, and you will apply methods in assessing for declarative and functioning knowledge. Okay. So have a productive and fun learning session online. We hope that you are now ready to tackle again this day's event. So good morning po again, and thank you for being here and committing to our training.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mayet Rivera, for a recap and letting us know what's up for today. So we have several speakers lined up, and that's why we have to keep track of the time. All right, so just a reminder for some of the participants, some of you are still logging in as anonymous. We regret, though you're watching us, we regret that we cannot issue you certificates of attendance, and also we cannot entertain your questions. So please make sure that you go over again your registration. Take note of the box there that requires that you indicate the name and the institution. All right, so let's proceed now with the first presenter for today on Module 4, Teaching and Online Learning. Our resource person is a regular faculty member of the Institute of Education and formerly the IE Science Cluster Head and Coordinator of Educational Technology at Far Eastern University. He is a university researcher who also does in-house journal reading, module writing, science textbook content editor, or editing rather, and was formerly an FAU Canvas and DLEX Digital Literacy Program lecturer. He's one of the select faculty presenters or resource speakers in the Joint Teacher Training Program of the National Institute of Education of Singapore and Far Eastern University, and the first education research colloquium between the university, technology, because that's Malaysia, and Far Eastern University. He is also a research advisor of the IE's first Tamaraw Education Research Festival, which became champions last April 25 in 2017. He is a member of various local and international organizations. I will no longer name them, but later on you'll find out. He holds a master's degree in biology education from the University of the Philippines, Diliman, and currently finishing his PhD in curriculum and instruction at the Philippine Normal University in Manila. He also actively engages in advocacy like in the Greenpeace International and gives free curriculum consultation to various public and private schools in the Philippines. Friends, please welcome our speaker for today, Mr. Ariel Kapati. Ariel, you have the floor.
Hello, good morning everyone, and thank you very much for participating in this activity. We are looking forward to a meaningful and learning experience with you all.
Good day, educators. It's my pleasure to be one of your speakers in this exciting and engaging online faculty training spearheaded by the Commission on Higher Education Bayanihan Project and Far Eastern University, Manila, in response to the new normal education paradigm. My topic for today is teaching and learning online for declarative and functioning knowledge. Teaching and learning online. Facilitating teaching and learning involves enhancing learners' capabilities by encouraging participation, mutual understanding, and shared responsibility. Hence, facilitation makes use of teachers' expertise, not in declaring content knowledge, but in creating a learning environment that supports the learner's thinking process and in allowing them to develop learning skills and self-awareness. This process values content as a vehicle to demonstrate the mentioned skills and puts premium to teaching by engaging students in meaningful learning activities. While the modality of online learning is different from face-to-face, the goals of learning are basically the same. Thus, successful facilitation of online teaching learning activities is still rooted on principle-based planning of instructional design and on proper selection on appropriate technology-assisted methods. Module 4.1, Teaching and Learning Online for Declarative Knowledge. Objectives. At the end of this training module, participants should be able to articulate what declarative knowledge is, explain methods that can be used to teach declarative knowledge online, and apply teaching methods in designing learning activities for declarative knowledge. What you need to know. What is declarative knowledge? Declarative knowledge refers to content knowledge which came as a direct result of research and is subjected to rules of evidence. It is this kind of knowledge found in books from the libraries and declared by teachers in their lectures. Lanehart, Young, and Merriman refer to it as abstract, conceptual, and dealing with labeling, differentiating, elaborating, and justifying. Examples of this knowledge include knowledge of historical events, medical terminologies, and principles of economics. Biggs and Tang also emphasize that students' understanding of this kind of knowledge can be assessed by providing them opportunities to declare it back using their own words and examples. Learning declarative knowledge rely on understanding rather than on memory. As such, designing of instruction for learning declarative knowledge should emphasize what students should do to demonstrate their understanding. Their learning outcomes should contain an appropriate demonstrable verb. Example, explain, articulate, exemplify, indicating how understanding of the declarative knowledge can be demonstrated in a specified context. It is important to note, however, that demonstration of understanding should focus on the students as they are the ones learning it. A careful review of established learning outcomes must be done to ensure that observable behavior or understanding would be actualized by students and not merely reception of declared knowledge from teachers. What teaching methods can be used to teach declarative knowledge? Since declarative knowledge is heavily content knowledge on knowing facts or information which are seemingly static, designing of teaching learning activities aligned to the learning outcomes should allow students to associate declarative knowledge with images and actions. That is, designing activities that would require students to use most of their senses rather than just listening to a teacher-led lecture. For example, asking students to map out concerns from their reading and to share and compare them with the work of their peers to one another would more effectively result in their understanding of the content as they are able to engage with it and associate it with the interaction they made. Furthermore, as they can engage with the content and with others, students on their own will be able to meaningfully structure their declarative knowledge base, which is necessary in developing higher forms of thinking or higher levels of thinking. What teaching methods can be used to teach declarative knowledge? Biggs and Tang still specified that teaching learning activities for declarative learning can be managed by the teacher, by groups, or by individual students. However, it is important to emphasize that a successful teaching learning situation may not be dependent on just one activity and may be composed of a combination of these managed activities. Teacher manage. Teacher manage involves tutorials, setting assigned readings, concept mappings, and essays. Teacher manage but with active student participation. Examples of this are the following: peer teaching, peer-assisted study sessions, interactive work in class, and various group works. Student manage. Examples of student managed activities are collaborative learning groups and chat rooms. Individually manage. Reading, searching the web, and listening to a lecture are examples of individually managed activities. How can you apply it? To reiterate, lecture in this context is not a teaching learning activity, but rather a teaching learning situation consisting of combined teaching learning activities. The goal of lecture is to expose students to the most recent developments in research in the field and thereby to be used by students as baseline to interpret and to construct their own knowledge on the latter process of learning. Since information from required readings may be 1 or 2 years outdated, activities within a lecture situation should make students compare and update information, share insights, and think how this information can be applied. An online video, for example, should not make declaration of the same knowledge that can be found in books and require readings, but rather, or required readings, but rather expose new development in the field. Moreover, the experience gained by the students while listening to the online video should be treated instrumental in establishing their declarative knowledge base, but not a demonstration of their understanding. In this case, an online video should be accompanied by other teaching learning activities that will give several opportunities for students to demonstrate not memory, but understanding. Designing lecture videos. Since videos are essential in the conduct of online lecture, the following are some points that an instructor needs to take into consideration. Purpose, length, access, sensitivity, content, and technical aspect. Purpose of the video. Just like all learning materials used in the course, videos to be used in an online lecture should support the expected learning outcomes. Furthermore, it should be one of use in updating students of the recent development in the field, which may not be written in books and other required readings. Length of the video. Since watching videos would probably require sustained level of listening, it is recommended that it is limited to not more than 15 or 20 minutes. A prolonged unchanging level of activity like listening may lower concentration and would defeat the purpose of other teaching learning activities anchored on the attached video. Access to the video. It is advisable that the videos be accessible at any time to allow students to listen to lectures at their convenience. Sensitivity. To be specific, cultural sensitivity. It is recommended that videos used in the class will be culturally sensitive, meaning respect about their beliefs, race, philosophy, and the likes should be addressed in making the video or in using the video. Content. In making a learning video material, it is recommended to proofread the content several times with peers or experts or with co-peers or co-experts to ensure accuracy of information. Last but not the least, technical aspects. Online videos used in teaching should consider the quality of sound and images. Bad sound and poor or pixelated images distort student motivation. Creating work-along exercises. As mentioned in the earlier part of this section, listening to a video does not allow demonstration of understanding by the students. Thus, activities that would allow students to organize and structure their own declarative knowledge base are needed to accompany the attached video. Below are few of the many learning or teaching learning activities that can go along with uploading a video. Readings and annotations, guide questions or working along exercises, note-taking and think group share, think aloud and insight sharing, and student-led tutorials. Readings and annotations. Readings can be tied to a video to allow students to compare and organize information by annotating the reading and then pointing out or opposing ideas shared in the video. An activity sheet may be provided for this purpose. Guide questions or working along exercises. Students may be given guide questions whose answers can be obtained from comparing information between the reading and the video. These guide questions can be posted as part of the instructions for the video. Alternatively, an activity sheet can be posted where students may write their answers. Note-taking and think, group, and share. Students may be asked to take note of important points from the video. Students may be instructed to watch the video twice. One for comprehending its content and one for recording important points through note-taking. Then, students may be asked to group themselves and discuss their notes to one another online. Examples are messaging, chatting, video conferencing, discussion page. Setting of groups may be done through the grouping feature of the people option in the learning management system. Think aloud and insight sharing. Allowing students to share what they understood may come in different forms online. This can be through setting up discussion page or group chat where students can post insights and allow others to seek and resolve clarification, or through video, audio conferencing where participants may share their understanding and questions on the material synchronously. Lastly, student-led tutorials. Group of students are assigned different questions about the learning material. Then, Each group is given enough time to present and allow other groups to clarify points that they do not understand. The teacher runs the last few minutes of the class to clarify unresolved concepts. This can be done synchronously through conferencing feature or asynchronous through a combination of student video presentation uploaded online and discussion forum. Using assignments. The sample activities to accompany online learning videos are also examples of assignments that can be given to students for them to demonstrate their declarative knowledge base. Moreover, the aforementioned activities may be used along with other learning materials aside from online lecture videos. Clarity on the various aspects of the assignment is a must to ensure that it serves as a tool assisting learners and teachers. Purpose of assignment. Assignments should have a clear purpose with respect to the expected learning outcomes. An assignment may have more than one purpose. It can be a form of diagnosis which tries to check learners' comprehension of the learning material, a tool which learners pull and use in interacting with other students, a summative task which assesses students' cognitive growth, and or a reinforcement which clarifies concepts and improves learners' understanding. Relevance of assignments. Another tip in making assignment online is to consider its relevance. True assignments discussed in this section are those that allow demonstration of understanding of declarative knowledge. It is important to highlight that declarative knowledge is more clearly understood when used in meaningful learning activities or situations. As such, assignments should have relevance and connection to other teaching learning activities that would require students to exhibit decision-making and other higher order thinking skills. They should be there should be a foundation This should be a foundation for a teaching learning activities that will allow deepening of learning among students. Length and due date. Assignment given should be accomplished within a considerable time frame depending on the length of the task. Although online learning promotes independent and asynchronous modality, definite due dates assist students in transitioning from understanding of declarative knowledge to demonstrating of functioning knowledge. Due dates can be set in the assignment feature of the course. Instructions and rubric. Definite instructions and criteria for grading are needed to guide students on the task. An online learning activity is mostly in written text. Careful and clear directions are needed by the students. Questions asked. While divergent questions are useful for probing students and promoting student reflection, convergent questions or those questions with definite answers are most likely helpful in demonstrating declarative knowledge in assignments given. Convergent questions are not automatically low level if they initiate independent learning and interactivity between students. For example, a discussion forum on a convergent question will clarify understanding of concepts through social construction of knowledge as students contribute in understanding questions and agree on structured declarative knowledge that emerges. Interactivity. More engagement with the content gives learners more opportunities to understand it. Aside from previous mentioned activities, the following may be treated as assignments that promote engagement with content and or other participants in online learning. Short essays. Students may write brief answers to essential points learned from the learning material. This can be assigned through assignment features and may be annotated by teachers during checking. Concept maps. Students may be asked to organize information using a concept map. A concept map may be used by students to present central ideas and sub-concepts from the learning material. Learning partners. Students may be asked to group and allowed to share their insights on the material first before asking them to also share it to the whole class online. This allows comparison and discussion of understanding on the learning material or of the learning material. Submission of the combined insights may be assigned by setting the assignment group. Applying it. The following are LMS features or learning management system features that can be used to facilitate teaching and learning of declarative knowledge. File attachments. File attachments can be used to send videos, readings, and other learning resources that can enrich students' baseline knowledge or schema about the topic. Assignments. Assignments can be used for work-along activities which can help students organize key concepts about the topic. Discussion boards are also useful because it is used to clarify concepts from the given learning resources. The following are online resources that can be linked and or used to facilitate teaching and learning of declarative knowledge. Adobe Presenter Video Express. This online tool is downloadable software which allows recording of video attachment for online lecture. Students may use this software for recorded presentations where they can record themselves while also showing their visual presentations. Audacity. Audacity from audacityteam.org is a website which allows downloading of software which can record and edit audio content. Teachers and students may use this for audio recorded presentation. Canva from canva.com allows students to design and map out information through drag and drop feature. H5P from h5p.org is a website which helps teachers create interactive content for their online class. For example, an interactive video built with pop-up or pop-out quizzes and annotation in the middle can be created through H5P. iframe. iframe generator or iframe is a website that generates HTML code of website pages which can be embedded on the page of a learning management system. Microsoft Teams. This is a Microsoft application software that allows chat, video conferences, calls, and collaboration between people in a group. This may be used for longer communication. Spreaker. Spreaker from Spreaker.com is a website which creates and broadcasts podcasts. Zoom. Zoom is an online video conferencing application that may be used for course meetings and consultations. For free subscription, Zoom can only allow conferences not exceeding 40 minutes. YouTube. Other video and audio streaming devices or streaming site and tools are YouTube, Podcast, Vimeo, Big Blue Button, Google Meet, GoToMeeting, Cisco WebEx, Quizzes, and Kahoot are other EdTech resources that can be used for teaching and assessing students' declarative knowledge in fun ways. Testing your learning. Directions. select the best answer based on the aforementioned discussion. You will be given 30 seconds to answer each question. Again, select the best answer based on the aforementioned discussion. You will be given 30 seconds to answer each question. Number one, elaboration of what the terminology means is an example of blank. A, power knowledge. B, functioning knowledge. C, declarative knowledge. And D, subjective knowledge. Elaboration of what a terminology means is an example of blank. A, power knowledge. B, functioning knowledge. C, declarative knowledge. And D, subjective knowledge. Okay, the correct answer for question number one is declarative knowledge. Okay, number two. Which of the following activities enrich student schema about the topic before engaging with others? A, brainstorming. B, case-based learning. C, reading and annotating. And D, conferencing and marginal notes. Which of the following activities enrich student schema about the topic before engaging with others? A, brainstorming. B, case-based learning. C, reading and annotating. And D, conferencing and marginal notes. Okay, the correct answer is letter C, reading and annotating. Number three, pairing students with assumption that one is better than the other is an example of blank. A, peer tutoring. B, insight sharing. C, partner learning. And D, think, pair, and share. Pairing students with the assumption that one is better than the other is an example of blank. A, peer tutoring. B, insight sharing. C, partner learning. And D, think, pair, and share. The correct answer is letter A, peer tutoring. Item number 4. To allow progress and demonstration of learning outcomes, lecture video should have blank. Feedback. B, annotations. C, case-based learning. And D, work-along exercises. To allow progress and demonstration of learning outcomes, lecture video should have blank. A, feedback. B, annotations. C, case-based learning. And D, work-along exercises. The correct answer for item number 4 is D, work along exercises. Following outputs allow students to organize their thoughts through mapping of ideas. A, infographics and thinking aloud. B, short essays and insights sharing. C, graphic organizer and infographics. And D, thinking aloud and insight sharing. Which of the following outputs allows students to organize their thoughts through mapping of ideas? A, infographics and thinking aloud. B, short essays and insight sharing. C, graphic organizers and infographics. And D, thinking aloud and insight sharing. And infographics. Pictures of Biggs and Tang, and Lanehart, Young, and Merriman. One should be able to A, articulate what functioning knowledge is, explain methods that can be used to teach functioning knowledge online, and apply teaching methods in designing learning activities for functioning knowledge. Functioning knowledge puts into work the declarative knowledge by demonstrating higher order skills of analyzing, creating, and evaluating. This kind of knowledge utilizes content knowledge to solve problems, design plans, and make decisions. Biggs and Tang, 2009. This also puts declarative knowledge to work in practical context. An example of functioning knowledge is the professional decision making in the field of business, healthcare, fine arts, social works, and other professions. In essence, functioning knowledge enables individuals to make an informed decision based on obtained declarative knowledge base. Models in educating learners on functioning knowledge. These are the following: the traditional and the unconventional. The traditional model is to first build a strong foundation of declarative knowledge and then provide opportunities for learners to apply what they have known in making decisions on practical contexts. The unconventional model, or the other model, works in vice versa, where learners are first presented context, example, situational problems in the workplace, and then build the declarative knowledge base as needed to solve the problem. Either way, both models provide meaningful learning experience utilizing declarative knowledge. This contributes to the development of lifelong learning, as the more declarative knowledge is used through functioning knowledge, the more learners are engaged in meaningful and independent learning experience. There are three information that can be used in designing case-based learning projects. These are the following: presenting the case, carrying out the case, working on the case as a group. Case-based learning projects may be used as a teaching learning activity for expected learning outcomes intended for application of concepts in real-life cases. Case-based learning projects illustrate issues about the course, the profession in general, and may address part or whole of the learning outcomes in the course design. It involves presentation of the case to the students and requires them to carry it out. Conduct, conduct of this requires presenting the case, carrying the case or carrying out the case, and working on the case as a group. Presenting the case. Documents in the form of narratives detailing information on real-life situation, example, court proceedings, shall be provided to the students. Further, teaching learning activities that will encourage teacher-student and student-student interactions may be done to draw out what happened and clarify details from the documents. Documents may be uploaded as a file accessible through download, while conference or discussions forums may be used to clarify or for clarification of other case details. Carrying out the case. Students may assume a professional role to address the case. Students then use their declarative knowledge base to make decisions on the case and enact plans that lead to the expected learning outcomes. Learning output to be produced by students about the case should be certain and clarified by teachers. Lastly, working on the case as a group. Case-based learning may require a great deal of collaboration as arrived plans for the decisions on the case are based on deliberation actions or deliberated actions applying declarative knowledge. Working as a group also simulates interaction in the context of the case being studied. Using the collaboration feature of the learning management platform will allow students to work on a single document and monitor changes in the case learning output. Student learning interaction does not only work well in elaborating known content, but in forming standards for judgment and interpretation, reflecting at a given position, and applying theory to practice. To ensure success in a group work, the following concepts need to be taken into consideration. Knowledge base, size of the group, questions asked, presentation and submission, and group dynamics. Knowledge base of students. Students must have adequate schema so can so can contribute so that they can contribute to the discussion towards accomplishing the learning task. Size of the group. In working as a group, students should exercise responsibility commitment. A large group size may lead to social loafing or the tendency to put less effort to the task and be highly dependent on on other members of the group. A small group size is an advantage, but an optional size still depends on the nature of the task and the dynamics of the group. Random assignment of group members may be done to promote intercultural exchange. Members of the group may be set through the people option in the learning management platform. Questions asked. Questions that probe students' experiences and allow them to generate new ideas and reflection are probable in group activities intended to exhibit functioning knowledge. As such, the art of good questioning is a must to prevent aimless discussion of students in a group. A synchronous group may be of help for students to further reflect on high-level questions requiring longer time to answer. Presentation and submission, or presentation and group submission. Submission of learning outputs may be assigned by group through the assignment setting in the learning management platform. Likewise, the collaboration feature may be used to allow group of students to work on a single output and monitor their progress and the other members' contribution. In case of group presentation, group students may present synchronously or asynchronously. Lastly, group dynamics. Group dynamics. Interaction between group members may depend on the purpose of the group task. Examples. Brainstorming groups. In here, students generate ideas relating to the task and synthesize these ideas as a group. Syndicate group. Each group is assigned a unique task, which is part of a larger project or case study. The teacher at the end guides students to formulate and consolidate the conceptual structure that has emerged from each group. Problem-solving groups. Individual members draw different hypotheses on the incomplete part of the problem presented. The group then constructs conclusion by deliberating the different aspects of data based on individual hypotheses. The conference feature of the LMS or Learning Management System should be used sparingly to connect to students. It should not replicate what has been communicated in the online video intended for lecture, nor should it reiterate what is already in the learning material. It is an avenue for teachers and students to interact, a way of motivating the learners as they are able to share their constructed ideas and see the persons they have been interacting with, face to face, during the synchronous conduct of the course. Below are some reminders in relation to online conference. Encourage dialogue, encourage students' contribution, identify areas of agreement and disagreement, promote understanding between teacher and students, and of course, provide feedback. Encourage dialogue. Dialogue in an online conferences is a form of learning. It allows social construction of knowledge through exchange of analysis, interpretation, and judgment between the teacher and the students. It allows free and critical learning as students draw out their ideas during prompted discussions. Encourage students' contribution. Online conference should encourage and acknowledge students' contribution. While a plenary online conference may allow selected students to represent their group, participation by everyone can still be maximized by conducting multiple conferences with scaled-down number of participants. Example, 2 parallel online conference for a class of 40 students with 20 students each session. Online conference for an assigned group in the class. Identify areas of agreement and disagreement. Online conferences are a venue of discussion or discussing. Online conferences are a venue for discussing disagreements and confusions. They provide the teacher and students a platform to address concerns regarding an activity or the course in general and serve as a setting for class negotiations and consultations. Number 4, promoting understanding or promote understanding between teacher and students. Since response is immediate and classroom issues are addressed real-time in an online conference, conflict between the teacher and the students is lessened, if not prevented. Provide feedback. Online courses or online conferences may be used to provide the general feedback for the whole class or specific feedback for a group of students. This feature may be used to clarify certain comments from the teacher which some students may not readily understand. Biggs and Tan suggested 5 stages in the conduct of computer-mediated conferencing. Number 1, make sure that all participants can go online and provide technical support if available. Number 2, you have to start building a sense of group and community through online socialization. Number 3, guide students in navigating and organizing information. Number 4, provide opportunities for students to share ideas. And number 5, use self-critical and reflective strategies that will promote students to be responsible of their own learnings. Zoom conference and allows students to join when it commences. It allows uploading of a presentation for students to view during the conference. The conference may be recorded for students who may want to review the conversation or those who miss to attend the session. Recording should, however, be done with the consent of the participants. Applying it. The following are LMS features that can be used to facilitate teaching and learning of functioning knowledge. Assignment or assignments, collaborations, conferences, discussions, and modules. Assignments can be used for activities which will put knowledge into professional context. Collaboration, on the other hand, can be used for activities that will encourage group work among students. Conferences, as one of the LMS features, can be used for synchronous deepening discussion of the topic. Discussion or discussion boards can be used for asynchronous deepening discussions of the topic. Lastly, modules, which can be used to organize learning activities, which will ensure activities are built from the simplest to complex. The following are online resources that can be linked and or used to facilitate teaching and learning of functioning knowledge. Number one is Nomio. Nomio from nomio.com is a website which allows free hosting of Moodle for running complete or part of course modules. From mentimeter.com, Mentimeter. It's a website which allows teachers and students to brainstorm on a particular question or topic. Students can submit their answers real-time and publicly. Microsoft Teams is a Microsoft application that allows chat, video conferences, calls, and collaboration between people in a group. This may be used for longer communication. Padlet from padlet.com is a website which allows teachers to design pages that may serve as a bulletin boards, discussion forums, and charts for students. Students can access these pages and post their questions or answers rather publicly. FET from fet.colorado.edu is a website which offers interactive simulations for science and math concept applications. Venngage from venngage.com is a website which allows students to map out their ideas through creative infographics. Yammer. Yammer is a Microsoft application and social networking service for private communication. Discussion forums and chats may be held in Yammer. MS Office applications. Office productivity tools that students can use to collaborate are Office 365 apps like Outlook, Word, PowerPoint presentation or PPT, Excel, Sway, OneNote, and OneDrive. Testing your learning. Direction. Select the best answer based on the aforementioned discussion on functioning knowledge. You will be given 30 seconds to answer each item. Directions. Select the best answer based on the aforementioned functioning knowledge discussion. You will be given 30 seconds to answer each item. Number one, which of the following verb can be used in constructing an intended learning outcome for functioning knowledge? A, label. B, explain. C, evaluate. And D, differentiate. Which of the following verb can be used in constructing an intended learning outcome for functioning knowledge? A, label. B, explain. C, evaluate. And D, differentiate. The correct answer is C, evaluate. Number 2, which is an example of functioning knowledge? Business planning, lesson planning, defining concepts, labeling concepts. A, business planning and lesson planning. B, lesson planning and defining concepts. C, defining concepts and labeling concepts. And D, business planning and labeling concepts. Which is an example of functioning knowledge? A, business planning and lesson planning. B, lesson planning and defining concepts. C, defining concepts and labeling concepts. And D, business planning and labeling concepts. The correct answer is A, business planning and lesson planning. Number 3. For number 3, which of the following learning activities requires students to carry out a task which illustrates real-life situations and problems in the professional context? Case-based projects. Letter B, student-led tutorials. Letter C, syndicated groupings. And letter D, student presentations. Which of the following learning activities requires students to carry out a task which illustrates real-life situations and problems in the professional context? A, case-based projects. B, student-led tutorials. C, syndicated groupings. And D, student presentations. The correct answer is A, case-based project. For number 4, grouping students to allow them generate and synthesize ideas is an example of blank. A, bus groups. B, syndicate groups. C, brainstorming groups. And D, problem-solving groups. Grouping students to allow them to generate and synthesize ideas is an example of A, bus groups. B, syndicate groups. C, brainstorming groups. And letter D, problem-solving groups. The answer is, for number 4, the answer is letter C, brainstorming groups. Last item for this session. Number 5, which of the following is not a purpose of conference in online learning? A, conduct long lectures. B, discuss disagreements. C, provide timely feedback. And D, encourage dialogical learning. Which of the following is not a purpose of conference in online learning? A, conduct long lectures. B, discuss disagreements. C, provide timely feedback. And letter D, encourage dialogical learning. The answer for item number 5 is conduct long lectures. For the reference part, Big Sentang Literature's Teaching for Quality Learning at university, what the student does is used for this topic, functioning knowledge. Thank you very much and keep safe, co-educators.
Thank you very much, Professor Ariel Kapati, with your presentation of how to teach through online. All right, so we would like, at this point, we would like to entertain questions from the floor and kindly post them. I have already 2 questions, Ariel. One, but I guess I'm having more than that now. The first is from Iris Rueda Bernardo of PUP Manila, and the question goes, why peer tutoring when one is assumed better than the other? Would you like to respond to that, Ariel? Yeah, you can turn on your microphone and your cam. All right. Ariel, will you please respond to that, please?
Sir Ariel, please turn your microphone unmute. Thank you.
All right, please come on board now.
All right, good morning. Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, we do.
Okay, good morning. Thank you very much, Ma'am Bernardo from PUP Manila. If you have, why peer tutoring when one is assumed is better than the other? I would like to clarify this question. Basically, I think there should be a follow-up question clarifying the intention on why peer tutoring rather is assumed, or when one is assumed is better than the other one. Well, to clarify, basically, there's no monopoly of knowledge in the classroom. The same can be said in the larger society. Going back, at the classroom level, we do peer tutoring for the following purposes. Number one, we would like to simplify knowledge at their own level. I mean, explanation is sometimes better when discussed by classmates or peers. I think anxiety can be cracked. Okay, pressure might be high if teachers repeat the information or lecture several times with their peers. They're more relaxed and can vent out ideas clearly. Another important information here is that sometimes students tend to overlook information. We have to understand that not all students learn the same way at the same time. So technically pacing is different. Some students are advanced, average, and some can be classified as slow learners. I would like to clarify that that term, slow learner, is used in the educational literature, or education literatures rather. They are still learners, but some of these students are classified as slow learners. So peer tutoring is very important. And I think another important strength of peer tutoring is actually contextualization. When students share the same belief system or value system or ideologies, I think it would be an advantage if their classmates could, discuss those ideas, information about them. And lastly, I think the advantage naman para dun sa tutor is that the benefit could, he or she could do rather his or her part in knowledge dissemination. Basically, that's how things go, not only in the classroom but also in the society. So it's more relevant, and it will develop empathy among students. Yes, that's it.
Okay, thank you so much, Sir Ariel. Here's another question from, still from Iris. How about the WPS Office? I think this is a free software, right? On Android? Is it as helpful?
I am not really familiar with that educational technology material. Probably my colleague, who is an IT expert, could explain that later. The point is, the intention of using these instructional materials are basically, I mean, is basically rather the same. So whether you use, say, for example, Microsoft Teams or Google Meet or Zoom, basically the intention is the same. You're just, varying the platforms. Well, but what's more important in using these materials is, of course, the design. So when you design it, you have to make sure that it is anchored, say, on sound literatures, probably areas from education, psychology, uh, mass communication. So there are many lenses that you can use. And what we're saying to our teachers, to our colleagues, not to overwhelm them with these, technologies. They can choose. They can select. In our case right now, regarding your question, I'm not really familiar with that technology, but of course, my colleagues later could explain those things.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll ask Richmond later on, okay? Our teacher,
Yeah.
Rich. All right. Here's another question from the Technological University of the Philippines from Enrico Lucena. He asks, for slow internet connectivity, which applications will be suited for online teaching? For those with slow internet connection, which one perhaps would not eat up a lot of bandwidth?
Okay. Well, in FEU, we're using three modalities. We have the total analog learning, or TAL. We call that TAL. For those students who do not have access, say, internet, uh, to level the education field, we've prepared modules for them. The other two are online, so asynchronous and blended learning. So the blended learning is basically a mix of uh, synchronous and asynchronous. If you are worried about the bandwidth, the internet connection, just what I did a while ago, I actually pre-recorded my presentation because I fear that there will be technical problems. So I pre-recorded it. I mean, the video is kind of long. My suggestion is do it asynchronously. What they're doing in UP Open University, I think, as well as in PNU CFlex, or College of Flexible Learning, as well as in FEU, I mean, asynchronous learning is more convenient if you're worried about the bandwidth, the connection, because you can work at your own pace. So if you think that you might be rather having problems sa bandwidth, sa connections, sa bigat ng files, and the likes. So I think you can go to asynchronous learning. Now, what technologies can you use? Well, part of that could be Google. Google Classroom. You can upload files, you can upload essays, you can upload lit journals, and students can read that anytime, anywhere, uh, giving you some break if you are, if you are thinking of doing a video chat or lecturing online by a video. If you're worried about that, you can always shift to the asynchronous using texts. Okay, video kasi malaki ang kinakain, at the same time, pag nag-upload, it's always an issue. Secondly, yung pag-compress ng videos sa iba't ibang what they call this platform is also a consideration. So some videos, when you created it, it's okay, but when you upload it, it's already compressed. So it might be problematic. It might affect the color. It might affect the vivid, the clarity of the video or images. So my suggestion is, if that's your concern, you can always go to asynchronous learning.
Okay, thank you so much, Sir Ariel. All right, here's another question. Is it categorically safe to say that declarative knowledge is lots and functional knowledge is for HOTS?
Sorry, ma'am, I did not get
Is
that.
it categorically safe to say that declarative knowledge is for lots, marami, and functional knowledge is for hots?
Well, is declarative knowledge considered or under lots or lower order thinking skills, right? And knowledge. Yeah, basically, well, if you're gonna construct your, of course, last time you've constructed Celo, if you're gonna write your outcomes, generally speaking, the declarative knowledge is categorized under lower order thinking skills. However, it will still depend on the use of, say, for example, the verbs that you'll use in writing your outcome statement for the declarative knowledge. But generally, it is, okay, functioning knowledge, automatically it's rather under the higher order thinking skills. Now, again, in my discussion a while ago, in that slide presentation, this declarative knowledge are products also of functioning knowledge. So when they do or apply ideas, researches, information using that category or functioning knowledge, it becomes a declarative knowledge. So basically, there's a cycle. But you're certainly correct. Generally speaking, the declarative knowledge are lots. Okay, it can go up. I mean, if you could imagine the Bloom's or the revised Bloom's taxonomy, even with Marciano's, it can go up. It can go up, but not as high as the functioning knowledge.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Ariel Kapati. I'm sorry, Doctor ka na. Promote na kita kaagad. That means to say you're up to it. Anyway, we still have several questions, but I don't have the time to read them all. But rest assured that Ariel Kapati will be responding to it here now on the Q&A as we need to proceed with the next portion. Now, but before that, allow me to provide you some reminders, because still we're now on day 3, but we still are receiving anonymous registrants. As I said, unfortunately, we cannot credit those. So please look at your respective screens, and it tells you that when you enter into the attendance sheet, when you click that, there is that bottom there portion that says you have to put your name. All right. Although it says optional, but we strongly encourage that you don't make it optional because we cannot credit your participation. That means a certificate cannot be issued to you. Now, there were 2 others or 3 others who saying, but we've been here for a couple of days already. Unfortunately, we have no way of ascertaining whether that was you or not. So, again, reminder, please make sure this is done. One of them asked about not being able to register to Microsoft 365. Well, that will be answered perhaps by our next presenter because he's really the techie guy. All right. Now, again, the other reminders, your Moodle account will be sent via your email, so you can check that later on. And then if there is a difficulty in logging in or if there is some delay in catching up with the videos or going the live broadcast or streaming, probably this has got to do with your internet connection. So hopefully you refresh or just be a bit patient. Okay, and then as to the CIB template, this will also be provided to you. The link will be shared through your email. So that is it. Don't forget, before the end of the day, before the end of the morning session, we will again give you the link to the attendance sheet and make sure there are no more anonymous people on board. Now, allow me to introduce the next presenter, okay? The next presentation is actually, that will dovetail the presentation of Ariel, and it has got to do with using again your LMS in online delivery for declarative and functioning knowledge. But what he will share with you are practical, very practical tips as well. Okay, you've seen him already the last few days on the first day, and of course he's been with us because he's always off cam. He's been doing the technicals playing the videos, switching things, putting up the slides. He has, allow me to introduce him again. That's Richmond Ayaden Lim. He had his master's degree in information systems at the University of the Philippines. He is soon to be a doctor too, because he has just finished his comprehensive exams at and he's taking up his Doctor of Information Technology at the University of the East. And his research interests include clickstream data behavior of students in learning management system, education units. He has taken up education units. He's also certified as Google and Microsoft educator. He is also certified by the Commission on Civil Service as an electronic data specialist or computer programmer. He is with me at the Education Technology. He's a specialist, and also he teaches at the Institute of Arts, teaching mathematics, and also is connected with the IT department. Friends, good morning once again. Please welcome Richmond Riaden Lim. It's your turn, Rich.
Hello po. Yes, ma'am. Good morning. Can you hear me po?
Loud and clear.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, so I'll be doing this quick. I'll be sharing my PowerPoint now. Okay, so here. So it's important that we transform yung diniscuss ni Sir Ariel kanina into a digital activity. It's not that we have the book, we have PDF, and then we just upload it on learning management system. It's not the proper way to do that. So LMS was created to easily conduct classes without the presence of physical class. Thus, like we've discussed yesterday, it's not just about the technology, it's the issue of how do you marry the technology and the learning of the students, okay? So we focus on the learning outcome. So we also have to embed our LMS to our course information booklet so that the students will also know what to expect and what to have, for example, in adjusting to the online class. Okay, so how do we shift our activities from face-to-face to online? So that's the really difficult question. Now, it is important to plan kasi when we experience this kind of learning modality, usually ginagawa lang ng faculty is to upload the files. So anong nangyayari? Yung files natin is just a mere digital book of the students, and they're not being guided by that. So online classes can be pre-recorded, for example, to allow other people to check your discussions before publishing it. Kunyari, you have a certain partner where he can or she can have view your presentation in a different perspective, maybe comment on it, and then after which makikita natin na if they could understand, probably the students can also understand it. So there's this process. Plan on how your students be engaged, making sure that they are not alone in this setup. So there are various students who experience anxieties because feeling nila yung teacher nila pinababayaan lang sila. So let's not do that in the online class. Okay. So first thing, we have distributed your Moodle accounts. Hopefully natapos na pong mag-send, but you can practice anytime. In what I will discuss now is how to do everything, siguro yung functional and declarative knowledge and the features of Moodle that can handle those. And you can practice it on our free provided platform for you, okay? So first is how do we make sure that the students are not alone in this setup? You can use your announcements. So at least sabihin niyo po na there are still students who are not yet finished reading. So at least you have the first-hand engagement with the students. Be realistic on what you are giving them. Organize your topics well. In Moodle, we have this what we call topics where you can organize all the contents. For example, you have chapter 1, and then this chapter 1 has various activities and readings inside it. You can do that. Allow me to demonstrate or play a video on how to demonstrate the organizing of topics.
Editing course sections. If we turn the editing on in our course by clicking the gear menu and then turn editing on, we can quickly rename our sections from, for example, topic 1 to a name that's relevant to us by clicking the pencil icon, typing in a new name and pressing enter. If we click edit and then edit topic, we can also add a summary of this section using the formatting available. If I click Save Changes at the bottom, you can see that the topic section has been renamed and its name is also reflected in the nav drawer on the left. It's possible with the editing turned on to move sections. So we could move topic 2, which is not yet renamed, up above topic 1, which has been renamed to reading. To delete a section, we click the bin icon from the menu on the right of the section. Remember, this will also delete any activities in that section, but you can get them back again from the Recycle Bin link in the gear menu. This usually only appears once you've deleted something, depending on your administrator's settings. This course has 3 sections. We can add 1 or more new sections quickly at the bottom by clicking the plus and deciding how many sections we want. If I click the plus here, add 1 section, we now have 4 sections in our course.
Okay, so that's it. Also, we have what we call resources on Moodle. So various resources are like books where students can virtually flip per page and then you discuss. There are files feature wherein you can upload additional resources for your students. You have a URL, for example, you can post a YouTube video kasi there are some instances where the videos need to be recognized also. So we must be aware of that. And then also a folder wherein you can put other files in there, okay? So we have also activities. Create your assignments using the right activity. Hindi pag nagpa-quiz ka, ilalagay mo siya sa assignment. So we have to differentiate what's assignment, what's a quiz, and what's a forum. So here it is, assignments.
Assignment, submitted work. As a teacher, you can have your learners submit work through your Moodle course. This saves on paper and it's better than email because when they submit, you'll see a list of your class only on your Moodle course, not cluttered up with emails from colleagues and organizations. What they submit can be uploaded files or text written directly on Moodle. Or, as we see if we look at this example of an assignment, because you can type your instructions into Moodle's text editor, it doesn't only have to be text. You can add links, images, or videos relevant to your assignment. An assignment may be for one individual, or it may be for a group, and as a teacher you can choose whether or not to see the identities of your learners as you're grading it. With the Atto editor, teachers and students can directly record audio or video. Here the teacher is recording an example video for the students to follow. So if you want to add an assignment, we need to turn the editing on from the link in the gear menu, and then in the section where we want to add the assignment, we click the link Add an Activity or Resource to bring up Moodle's Activity Chooser. Assignment is first on the list, and we can either click it once to read the explanation about an assignment with some examples for using it, and then click the Add button at the bottom, or we can simply click the radio button twice. This then takes us to the assignment setup screen. Because assignment is so powerful, it has many different options. We're only going to look at a few in this video. The name is important because this is what the learners will see on the course page. And then in description, you add what you want them to do for the assignment. If you want to include images, media, links, you click the appropriate icons. I'm just going to write a short description of what they must do. And if you want to display these instructions on the course page, you tick the box. You can also upload additional support documents for them if needed. You can then choose when you want them to send in their work, with due dates or a cut-off date, and you can also set yourself a reminder when to grade by. The due date will display on the course overview for learners, and the reminder to grade by will display on the course overview for you. What's important next is to decide your submission type. In other words, if you want them to upload one or several files, you make sure that file submission is ticked, and you can choose the number of files you want, and you can specify one or more types of files you want them to upload. If you want them merely to type an essay using Moodle's text editor, you select Online Text, and you can also get Moodle to set them a word limit. Once you've done this, we can actually scroll down and save it and return to course, and we're ready to go. But it is worth exploring some of the other options. Click the question mark help icon against any if you need more information. For instance, in feedback types, setting comment in line will allow you to type directly on the learner's work, just as you would when grading on paper. In submission settings, you can decide if you want them to accept an agreement that their work is their own. In group submission settings, you can get them to work and submit as a group. And in notifications, we can choose whether or not to be messaged when students submit, and also whether or not by default students will be messaged when we've graded their work. If we click Grade, we can see that it's possible to choose a number out of which the assignment can be graded, and it's also possible to create our own scales, which we will look at briefly in another video. If you tick Blind Marking, then you won't initially be able to see which learner has submitted which piece of work. And marking workflow and allocation are useful when sharing the course with other teachers to divide up, moderate, and monitor the progress of grading. But for now, let's just save and return to course, and our assignment is ready for our students to submit.
Okay, aside from that, we also have to check yung assignments na sinabit nila. So how do we do that? Just to add some details in the slide, the video, you can also put rubric dun sa inyong mga assignment. So we've provided you also in Moodle to practice, may nakasulat doon, practice category wherein you can edit or add assignments. We also add students there para ma-simulate nyo rin kung ano experience ng students. And by the way, yung isasubmit yung CIB later, and after these sessions, you are going to experience on how the students can submit assignments on Moodle. Okay, so let's proceed to the next video.
Assignment grading in Moodle 3.1. Assignments can be graded more efficiently now from a single screen. It's possible to annotate uploaded Word or LibreOffice documents which are converted and returned to students as PDF files. And teachers can download selected assignment submissions rather than all of them. In this course, the teacher is going to grade an assignment. He can choose to view all submissions or click the new Grade button to start grading. This takes him to the first student in his list, and we can see that this student has submitted her essay as a Word document, and the teacher has a link to download it. There's a space to add a grade, and if required, to enter some feedback, and the large screen on the left displays the student's submitted essay, which Moodle has converted into PDF format so the teacher can annotate it, highlighting areas and adding comments. This feature must be enabled by your administrator. If it's not enabled, a teacher can still download Word documents or LibreOffice documents and annotate PDF files if that feature is enabled. The annotations can be saved at the bottom of the screen and the student notified, and you can move easily between students or select a specific student from the drop-down. If our teacher clicks View All Submissions instead of the Grade button, they can then select specific assignment submissions to download and view offline instead of having to download all of them. Find out more in the Moodle documentation.
Okay, so let's proceed to quizzes and what is the difference of assignment and a quiz?
Quiz, automatic grading. If you want to assess learners formatively or summatively with questions for which there are specified answers, Moodle's very powerful quiz enables you to do this. We can only look at a few of the features of the quiz in this screencast, but it's worth exploring more yourself and in the Moodle documentation. Quiz allows you to use different types of questions, not just multiple choice. And it also allows you to add, as here, media, images, video, sound files as part of your questions. If we go to our course and see how to add a quiz, the first thing to note is that in the More link from the gear menu, we can access the question bank. When a quiz is created in Moodle, you create the questions separately and store them separately, so they can be reused by you in a later quiz or by your colleague in the same course in a different quiz. So if you wish, you could start by adding your quiz questions to this question bank here and then make a quiz another day. But we'll make our quiz straight away. So to do that, we turn on the editing from the gear menu, and then in the section we want the quiz, we click Add an Activity or Resource. This takes us to Moodle's Activity Chooser, and we scroll down to Quiz. Quiz is an activity because the learners are interacting with it. If we click it once, we get information as to how best to use a quiz, and then we can click the Add button. Or if we understand about a quiz and don't need to read the information, we simply click the radio button twice, and this will bring up the setup screen. The first thing that we do is create the front page, if you like, of the quiz. The name and the description which quiz learners will see, and if you want the description to appear on the course page, just tick the box, Display Description on Course Page. There are many different settings in a quiz, and it is worth exploring all of them. If there's anything you're not sure of, the question mark help icon gives you extra information. For now, we're just going to click Save and Display, and we have a blank quiz, and what we need to do is to start adding some questions, which we can do by clicking the button Edit Quiz or Edit Quiz from the gear menu. We then see Add, and if we already have questions, we could add a random question to our quiz or a particular question from the question bank, which we might have added to earlier or a colleague might have added to earlier. But we are starting anew from nothing, so let's click to add a new question. We are then presented with a list of question types to choose from, and just like with the activity chooser, if we click the button next to the question type, we are presented on the right with some information as to what that question type does. And note that although most of these questions are questions where you provide the answer, it is possible by choosing Essay to have learners typing an essay which we would then manually have to grade. Note also there is a description question. This isn't a question type as such, it's just a text editor into which we could add an explanation, some instructions, images, videos or sound. For the purposes of this quiz, I'm just going to add a multiple choice question. We are then sent to the setup for this particular question. We have to give it a name, although the name doesn't appear in the quiz, but it's important because it's how it would be recognized in the question bank in the future, particularly if we have a lot of questions ourselves and perhaps shared with colleagues. In the question text, that is where we type the actual question, and then when we scroll down, what we see will depend on the question type, but we'll always be able to add general feedback for any question, and then in the answers, because it's multiple choice, we add the first possible answer with the grade. None, we add none if the question is wrong, or 100% if it's right. However, there are, as you can see, options in between. We can give specific feedback for each individual answer, and if we want to do more than just write simple text, we can use the icons in the text editor. So again, we write in our other choices, choose the grade, and we continue. When we click Save Changes, we have our first quiz question, which we can preview by clicking the magnifying glass icon. So we then go on and continue adding questions to our quiz. Finally, looking at a quiz that's already been made, it's easy to change the order of the questions by dragging them up or down, and to add or remove page breaks by clicking on the icon, and we can divide our quiz up into sections as well.
Okay, so I think this is the last, this is the forum. If we don't have any time po dun sa susunod, which is a lesson, I can also continue it sa next session, Ma'am Liz, because I think I still have 10 minutes for that. Baka hindi po tayo umabot sa time.
Yes, Rich, you may, how long is the forum?
Forum is around 2 minutes.
And then the other one?
Around 6 minutes.
Okay, I'd like to seek the indulgence and understanding of all the participants. We will extend a little bit. We're supposed to close at 11, but I hope you won't mind if we continue sharing it because I think you will benefit from that. Okay, go ahead, Rich.
Thank you po. Thank you po.
Forum. Start discussions. Being able to discuss our learning with others helps us to progress, and Moodle offers several different types of discussion forums for you as a teacher to enable your learners to do exactly that. To add a forum, click the Turn Editing On link from the gear menu top right, then in the section you'd like to add the forum, click Add an Activity or Resource. We can add several forums of several different types. We don't only have to choose one. Clicking Add an Activity or Resource brings up the activity chooser. Forum is an activity because students interact with it on the Moodle course. And we can add a forum by clicking the button once and then clicking Add at the bottom, or by clicking the button twice. There are a lot of settings for the forum, but we only really need to give it a name, a description, and then to save it. The name will be what the learners see on the course, and the description, if you wish, may be displayed by ticking the Display Description on Course Page box. We then choose the type of forum we want. The default is a standard forum, which allows anyone to click a button to add a new discussion topic. However, if you click the drop-down box, there are other types as well. For instance, a single simple discussion allows for the teacher to start a topic, and all the learners can do is respond to that particular topic. If you want to know what the other forum types are, then clicking the question mark, you see the help and you can find out more. There are other settings which might be worth exploring. For example, in availability, you can set due dates and cutoff dates for forum posts. You can decide the number and size of attachments that you wish to allow your learners to attach. And you can set a word count, which learners will see when they add a forum post. Another important element is subscription. Do you want your learners to be automatically subscribed to the forum, to automatically receive notification of replies, or do you want them to be able to choose? Discussion locking allows you to close a forum if no one has replied after a certain time. To get started on our forum now, we just need to scroll down and save and return to course. As a teacher, if we enter the forum to add a new discussion topic, we can either quickly post to the forum or click Advanced for other options, such as adding an attachment, pinning a post to the top, or setting a display period. Let's pin this post so we can see how it displays for students. And there is the pin icon. Here, in a different forum on a different course, we can see some other settings. From the three dots on the right, a teacher can unpin a discussion or pin a new one. Everyone can star a discussion from the three dots or by clicking on the star. And for students, this will move the discussion up the list under any pinned posts. Teachers can send private replies to students, which only the student can read, but not reply to. And teachers can manually lock discussions from the three dots on the right. Here we see the padlock, telling everyone they can no longer reply here. The envelope icon allows everyone to subscribe or unsubscribe to forum discussions.
So, how do we see student grades? For example, meron na po tayong grade, grinade na natin siya sa assignment, the quizzes are already in. How do we see the grades?
Gradebook. Each course in Moodle has its own gradebook, which you can access by going to the Grades link in the navigation drawer. By default, students see this link as well, and this is where they can access their course grades. Here's an example gradebook in a different course. Depending on your administrator's settings, you might see the various elements of the gradebook as tabs across the screen or as a drop-down menu or both. The first screen is the grader report, where you can see the students you have and graded activities. Note that if you have a lot of students and graded activities, then as you scroll across, you can still see the students' names, and as you scroll up and down, you can still see the titles of the graded activities. Grade history will allow you to see the different grades and when they were modified and by whom. The single view tab, or the pencil icon by the student's name, take you to the single view, which allows you to focus on one particular student or one particular grade item. The user report, or the icon here next to the student's name, takes you to the individual grades of one student, and this is what a student sees when they click the grades link in the nav drawer. In Setup, you can add new grade items or edit existing ones and decide on your preferences and the course grade settings. And in Scales, you can add a new scale. Custom scales are what the teacher has added to the course, and standard scales are what an administrator has added for everyone.
So, aside from that, if you are in a setup where students can answer by for example by week, or at least they have ample time and they don't have to submit siguro at their own schedule, you can also use what we call this one, adaptive learning.
Adaptive learning. Moodle's lesson activity enables teachers to create content which can adapt to a learner's responses. This is useful for decision-making exercises, simulations, independent revision, and subject practice. Learners can choose their own path through the content. In this first aid lesson, teaching CPR, the course participant can first choose whether they wish to read text or watch a video. Then, when they've taken in the information, they're presented with some quick questions to check understanding. Let's explore how this lesson is made. Our teacher adds the lesson by turning on the editing, selecting lesson from the activity chooser, giving it a name and description which can be displayed on the course page by ticking the box. Other settings can be expanded by clicking the links. Appearance. Show More displays all possible options. Administrators can decide what displays by default and what is accessed from the Show More link. And the help icons give more information about each setting. A file useful during the lesson can be uploaded in the linked media section and will display in a side block on the desktop or a button on the Moodle app. A percentage progress bar, a menu that's a list of pages, can also be displayed. The figure in the maximum number of answers defines the response options our teacher has for each lesson page and can easily be changed later. Availability. Lessons can have a time limit and a password, but a time limit can't be used if students are going to do the lesson offline on the Moodle app. Flow control. Here we can let students review but not repeat the lesson, let them try questions again and decide how often, and decide what happens when they answer correctly. Other settings are similar to other activities, but it's worth knowing that in activity completion, you can specify a minimum time spent before the lesson is marked complete. Save and Display takes our teacher to the Edit tab to decide what to add first. Note, it's helpful to plan your lesson structure in advance so you know where you're heading. Existing questions can be imported in certain formats. A cluster is a group of question pages which appear randomly to students. Find out more in the documentation. A content page contains information, while a question page offers a type of question, for example, multiple choice. So let's first look at the content page. Lessons can contain text, images, videos, and links. Once our teacher has added the content, it's important to make the connections, that is, jumps, to subsequent pages. That's why it's really important to have planned your lesson structure first, so you know where you're jumping to. This is the first page, and here are the options to jump to. We'll leave them as they are for now, as we haven't made any other pages, but when there are other pages, these will appear as names in the list of options. So our first jump will be to a video page, and a second jump will be to a text page. We'll leave them as they are for now. Saving the page displays its title, its type, this is a content page, jumps and actions, deleting, editing, duplicating, adding a new page, etc. We're seeing the collapsed tab. The expanded tab shows the same information but in more detail. Most times you'll be happy with the collapsed tab. We need to add two pages, one with a video and one with text. So we click Add a new page, Add content page, and then add our video. In the jumps, let's give the option of going back to read the text and also of testing yourself. These pages don't exist yet, so we'll ignore the jumps for now. Then we need to click again, add a new page, add content, and add our text page. Now let's look at those jumps. Our lesson isn't going to navigate correctly until we fix the path through the pages. So we return to the first page by clicking the edit icon and go to the jumps. Now the video page is visible as an option, so we can link to it, and we can link to the text page as the second option. We need to repeat this for other pages. Finally, a question page will test the learner's understanding, so we click to add a question page and decide the type of question, perhaps multiple choice. Answers can include links, media, and images. When the student gets the question correct, we can, if we want to, direct them to the end of lesson. If the student gets the question wrong, we can, if we want to, Make them remain on the same page until they get it right. Here's the editing screen of the finished lesson, and it's important to check all the jumps are correct with named pages. Don't rely on next or previous page, even if you think your navigation is okay. What students see. As our student navigates through the lesson, remember we added a time required completion condition to ensure she read or watched the materials thoroughly. If she reaches the end of the lesson before that required time, she won't be allowed to complete it yet. Lesson has many other settings and features which we don't have time for here. Again, the Moodle documentation can give you more information.
Okay, thank you very much. Once you've received the email addresses and credentials for the Moodle, when you are, for example, navigating in the lesson activity, at the bottom of the screen, you can see how it is done. So there is an embedded guide there. You just click the link for the documentation, and it will guide you on how to use a certain feature on Moodle. Ma'am Liz, thank you po.
Thank you very much, Teacher Rich. My question, Teacher Rich, it comes from Gahil, or I hope I pronounced it correctly, Santos, from the Western Mindanao State University. Regarding sa exam sa Moodle, sir, paano po yung automated checking of correct answer?
Well, sir, you can set yung nandun kanina sa quiz is you can set, for example, the choice is 100% weight. Then, yun na po yun. Automatic si Moodle is it will check it as 100%.
Okay, yeah. But for the essay po, you will really need to review essays.
Yes po. Yes po.
And just like what you presented earlier in the video, you can make comments, you can do annotation. So it's really very, very helpful. But for objective tests, easily. However, you need to review kasi sometimes if it's just not just a letter A or so, if you ask them to type, you have to review it because sometimes there are misspelling, but if you would like to accommodate that, yeah, you can regrade it. So it's always nice for you to check it. All right, let me see if we have other questions here. All right. Okay, they were all acknowledging you as both Ariel and yourself to be very informative. Earlier, okay, maybe you would like to respond to this, although Chini had, I guess, replied to this as well. Are you familiar with the Pocket Study? It's a great app also with main website called My Class Campus. Are you familiar with this, Rich?
Hindi po eh, hindi ako familiar. Is it a learning management system?
Well, he did not qualify. Well, I guess time check, it's 11:04. If you have other questions for Teacher Rich, well, other than subscribing to his YouTube, okay, you can, of course, post your questions here, and then he'll respond to you later on. Before I declare a break, thank you very much, Sir Rich. Before we declare a break, allow me please to explain a couple of things. One, regarding your attendance sheet, it is not, once we send you the link, it will only be open for a few hours, an hour or two. If you miss that, unfortunately, there's no way by which we can acknowledge your attendance. So please make sure, I think the link has been sent already to you. Please make sure that you accomplish it and that you don't register as anonymous. As earlier shown, don't make the indication of your name as optional. Also, I have another thing to declare. Yes, you will have obviously the lunch break. We will come again. Be ready by 12:30. We will come again at exactly 1 o'clock for this afternoon session. But in the break, I'm going to show you, it's optional. You can take your lunch, you can come back and watch it. I'm going to show you a couple of videos. 2 videos of which has got to do with the Public Intellectual Lecture Series. This is a project of the Office of the Academic Affairs Office. How is this used? Sir Ariel Kapate earlier demonstrated or showed to you that video productions or video recordings or video showings would be great. It would provide students with hopefully more updated versions of what may be going on. And in FEU, we had this project which we call Public Intellectual Lecture Series. It's PILS, no? Unlike the TED, where one is just standing. These are local experts, authorities on certain fields, whom we interviewed rather, whom we asked to deliver lectures, and we videotape them. We put them all together, and then this is stored on Canvas as files. Students enrolled in small classes, blended learning courses. Example, science, technology, and society, applied ethics, the Filipino in the contemporary world, and understanding the self. Ginagawa po namin yung wika. The students are enrolled in these subjects are expected to watch the films, not in the classrooms, but in their respective homes. And then, because they meet twice a week, so supposedly the class is scheduled twice a week, but 1 week you're off, you don't have to come to class. The second week meeting, though, requires that you go face-to-face now with a teaching assistant. So the teaching assistant follows up the video showing with discussions, and then they can debate on issues. Students can question certain principles that have been mentioned there. So discussion takes place separately from the video showing. Now we will show you two of those. One has got to do with the use of technology, scientific technology, to predict, read the vulnerability of places to disasters. And this is going to be shared by Dr. Mahar Lagmay, who I think is you're quite familiar with, because he has a radio program over DZMM and is oftenly cited, or always interviewed as well when it comes to calamities. I find this useful to show you because, for one thing, we're now entering this period where we're prone to disasters, and many of you, as you would have noticed, are vulnerable either to flooding, landslides, or even tsunamis or daluyo. So that video will help you or get you to know what technology is used and how communities can be made prepared and resilient. The other video which I'm going to show to you is different because it's like an interview with a host and a research a person or an expert on neuropsychology. It has got to do with, and this is for applied ethics, how your brain functions and how your brain may dictate certain behaviors which may not be acceptable or ethical any longer. So this will explain to the student how the brain works. And the third video which I'm going to show you is that of the presentation of our colleague here, Oliver Brioso, as he tells you about teaching online. So these three videos will run during the lunch break. It's up to you to watch it or not, but these videos reiterate what may have been shared by Ariel Kapati and Richmond Lim. So I'm now declaring the lunch break. So thank you very much. I'm 9 minutes over the 11 o'clock, but I'm pretty sure I'll start at exactly 1 p.m. Good afternoon, good morning, and I'll see you later. Thank you.
Talking about Philippine hazards, focusing here in our country, and how science and technology is used for CCA DRR. DRR stands for Disaster Risk Reduction. Okay? And CCA, Climate Change Adaptation. We have an area of about 300,000 square kilometers land area. And its location is the prime target for hazards. We are in the Pacific Ring of Fire, and we are in the typhoon belt. Climatological effects of El Nino and La Nina and the southwest monsoons, yung tinatawag natin na habagat. When there's a typhoon in the eastern part of the Philippines, it gives vitamins to the rain clouds in the South China Sea or the West Philippine Sea. So parang nagiging mas malakas yung hangin, tapos mas marami yung ulan doon sa western part. And it has caused flooding events in Metro Manila. Here I show you since 1948 or 1949, there have been a lot of typhoons that have entered in the Philippine area of responsibility. So each line that you are seeing represents the track of a typhoon since 1948. So we're just in 1972, counting to year 2000. You can see that of all the tracks, no, if you combine all of these tracks, Mindanao is not that well covered, but Visayas and Luzon are very well covered. No? And because there are not many typhoons in Mindanao, there's less damage to agricultural crops. Diba? There's less damage to crops. And that's probably one of the reasons why Mindanao is the fruit basket, no, of the Philippines. And you can see that of all of these typhoons, ano ba yung mga associated hazards? No? The typhoon is not the phenomenon, is not the hazard, it's the phenomenon. What kills people are the strong winds that can rip off the roof of houses, make trees fall down, and when you get hit, you die. Diba? It's the floods. When pag nalunod kayo, you die. That's the hazard. So the typhoon is not really, or the cyclone is not the hazard. It's the landslide that is triggered by the excessive rainfall. Okay? That's the hazard. Tapos storm surges. You've heard of storm surge, right? It happened in the central Philippines region. Aside from being the typhoon belt ng Pacific, we're also in the Pacific Ring of Fire. No? So all of these yellow and green ones and red areas, okay, are actually earthquake epicenters that have been plotted on a map. No? Not all earthquakes happen just anywhere. No? They happen in specific zones. And in the area of the Pacific, surrounding the Pacific, you have a lot of earthquakes happening. It's based on the historical record of earthquakes. No? And because it surrounds the Pacific, and also because these places where earthquakes occur around the Pacific are associated with many volcanoes, no? And volcanoes are associated with fire. Diba? Yung lava, it's very, very hot. That's the reason why it's called the Pacific Ring of Fire. It's surrounding the Pacific Ocean. No? So the countries surrounding the Pacific Ocean experience a lot of earthquakes, and there are volcanoes. And again, the eruption itself is the phenomenon. The earthquake itself is the phenomenon. No? So the hazards associated with the earthquake are yung collapse of a building, nadadaganan kayo. The ground shaking or the earthquake itself, if you're in an open field, you will not die. No? It's the hazard. So pag nag-shaking, it will make the building unstable. If it collapses,
We are here.
you die. No? So these are the hazards. Other hazards associated with earthquakes are tsunamis. No? So if the tsunami happens, you get buried or you get flooded in your area and you can't swim, and there's a wave that brings you and gets your head to hit a wall, then you die. Sa volcanoes, yung volcanic eruption, you don't get killed, no? Especially if you're far away. But if you're near lava, okay? If you're near the volcanic eruption and you come in contact with lava and it surrounds your house, you'll die from the excessive heat. Those are the hazards. No? We have to deal with the hazards. We know that these phenomena that bring forth the hazards will always be here, but we need to be aware of what these hazards really are. But in order to understand the hazards, we also must understand the phenomena. No? So this is where science comes in. The Philippines is the third most vulnerable country in the world to natural hazards. Name it, we have it, except for hazards associated with snow. Marami tayong hazards, and at the same time, there are a lot of people that are exposed to that hazard. And these people don't have enough capacity to be able to address the hazard. No? Kasi one of the reasons probably is they are persons with disabilities, or they are poor and they don't understand, they're not aware, and that increases what we call as risk. No? So you have the hazard, people are exposed, and these people are vulnerable. No? Parang their capacity to address the hazard is not that good. And therefore, if you combine all of them, it leads to our understanding of disaster risk. One manifestation of that high risk is probably your poor awareness or your poor understanding of the hazards in our country. Do you agree? Huh? Do you know of the hazards in our country? There are about more than 20. Can you name all of them? Do you know the hazards in this area? Probably not. No. So you are college students, no, and if you don't know all, no, so what more the people who don't study, diba? So you can just imagine that we really need to build awareness, no, so as to reduce the risk. And one manifestation also of that high vulnerability and high risk is that we have been experiencing disasters. So these are the hazards. No, we have pyroclastic flow associated with volcanic hazards, pyroclastic flow, debris avalanche, lahar, lava, tsunami, noxious gas, fire, landslides, ground subsidence, liquefaction, ground rupture, collapse of structures, earthquake-generated tsunami, floods, storm surge, strong winds, rain-induced landslides. So there are so many hazards. Are you prepared for each of these hazards? In the Philippines, of all the types of hazards, the number one are those that are associated with cyclones and extreme weather. No? Like floods and storms, these are the blue and the red ones. No? So you can see that from 1970s up to the decade from 2000 to 2009, it's really the floods and storms that cause a lot of damage, no? Because they come in several times a year. No? So in a year, about 20 cyclones enter the Philippine area of responsibility. And in Luzon and Visayas, there are about 6 to 7 that make landfall. In Mindanao, there are about less than 1 on average per year. Distribution of natural disasters, you can see that floods and storms are the most reported. Just to give you an idea of what kind of disasters have happened in the Philippines, this is one that happened in 2009, a massive landslide. The technical term is called a debris avalanche. No? This ridge, okay, that ridge, which is about 700 meters high, okay, 700 meters high, rocks there collapsed and flowed down, no, en masse, and developed a landslide footprint which was 4 kilometers long and 1.5 kilometers wide. And the town of Ginsaugon was buried, no? And that town had a population of 1,857. So this is the 700-meter ridge. It went down. That is about 4 kilometers, 1.5 kilometers wide. And the town of Ginsaugon was buried under 30 meters of rubble. Many people died. Fatalities 1,226, missing 980, bodies recovered 139, treated for injuries, those who died in the hospital 2. And they were trying to find that elementary school, which was buried, supposedly buried under 30 meters of rubble. It was a 2,000-man strong search and rescue team composed of the U.S. Navy, U.S. Marines, Philippine Army, miners, volunteers, all 2,000 strong, with people from Taiwan, with search and rescue dogs, Spain, Singapore, Japan. They all tried to contribute. Even people from the academe tried to locate that school kasi there were text messages on the second day that for 250 or nearly about that number were still inside the elementary school. So they were trying to search frantically for that with backhoes. No? And you can see that they were trying to dig up all sorts of places because they did not know where that school was located anymore. There was no landmark to locate the school. So they just kept on digging, guessing where the school was. No? And just to give you an idea how big that landslide was, that backhoe is this one. the backhoe the yellow backhoe is that one. Laki, di ba? So how can you search for a buried school with 200 plus children if the landslide is that big? Maybe we need a little bit of science there. What we did was we tried to go up on board the helicopters, take pictures, and then try to stitch the photographs and try to figure out using a geographic information system where the recovered personal effects, and then we tried to put in place and find out where the original location of the school was, or the town. And there was also a GPS point that was available because they were trying to figure out, or they were trying to measure the fault because it was near the Philippine fault. They were trying to measure the fault, and that GPS, you know what a GPS is, right? Well, had a millimeter scale accuracy. So that GPS point was only provided on the 7th day. Why? Because when we asked for it from government agencies, they said that we are not part of government. So they only gave it on the 7th day. So that is where some things need to be in place, no? So that it can be ensured that these scientific data are available so that during times of emergencies, they can be used. Enough with bureaucracy. In the same year, in 2006, there was this lahar, debris that was flowing, at rates of about 10 to 50, 60 kilometers per hour, which cascaded down the slopes of Mayon volcano and killed nearly 2,000 people. Buried a lot of houses, and one characteristic of that is that there are big boulders on top, strewn in the debris field. We call that kind of phenomenon as a lahar. A lot of people died in Ginubatan because of the lahars: Kamalig, Daraga, Bonga, Padang, and Basud. And the reason why they died is because they were caught by surprise. They thought that they were not sufficiently far from the river. So they were here. They thought that they were sufficiently far. But what happened was that the river, okay, that's the original course of the river, there were dikes that breached upstream. So this dike here, that dike here breached, and they were caught by surprise. And they were overwhelmed by the lahars. Okay, and also in that part. Now, this is a picture of the impacts of tropical front that hit Iloilo. And this picture reminds us that floodplains, which are the areas beside the river, which we claim as ours, is not really ours. It's part of the river. So when there are big floods, the river reclaims this land called as floodplains, the flat part beside rivers. And you can see that the river, instead of following that course, just went down straight. And those are floodplains that were reclaimed by the river because it's theirs. So there was also another big flood event in 2011, Candaba. You can see this Pampanga River, which is about 50 meters wide, maybe up to 100. But when the floods came in, the river swelled from 50 to 100 meters. It became as wide as what? 10 kilometers. Naging 10 kilometers from here to there. So you can see the force of nature. Sometimes it can be really overwhelming if the phenomenon or if the hazard is extreme. And no amount of intervention or structural intervention can stop it. We'll just waste money trying to stop it because the force of nature is well beyond what we can do or what we can design. You see, the Pampanga River, which is this one, But the floods really go all the way as thick as wide as 10 kilometers. And then there was the Sendong disaster in 2011. There was a flood. The river swelled. This is a floodplain. They have claimed it as theirs. And when the floods came in, they happen once every 100 years or once every 200 years. But when they come, they can devastate the whole area within that floodplain. And that is what happened in Mandulog River in Iligan, wherein thousands of people died. No? There was this community, an informal settlement composed of about 500 shanties, no? And all I saw was an area full of sand. In that same place, Orchid's Home subdivision, just beside that informal settlement, was this subdivision, relatively upscale. And when the floods came in, it was reduced to a pile of rubble. No? So this is how the impacts of hazards affect our communities. And they happen almost every year. And it creates so much loss and damage, no, that it runs up to to billions of pesos. And if it happens every day, how can we develop? How can we progress? And how can our economy sustain that rise if each and every year we lose a lot from the impacts of hazards? That means that we need to do something about it. Of course, in Tacloban, this is the most famous probably of all the hazards, because it's touted to be one of the strongest, or in fact the strongest cyclone that has ever made landfall. That's what it is known to be, and it created storm surges, and these storm surges killed a lot of people. And of course, in 2013, we also had, that's just a month before Yolanda struck, there was this earthquake creating a rupture dun sa ground, and that rupture was several kilometers long, 3 meters high, a wall similar to that. You can see the person for scale, and that didn't previously exist. No, it was just flat ground. This was continuous with this, but when it ruptured, it generated that Bohol earthquake in 2013, killing hundreds of people, and that wall is quite rare, no, by world standards, because not all earthquakes generate such a feature. So what the governor did was he tried to convert that disaster into something that they could earn from, sa tourism. Since it was 6 to 7 kilometers long, and it was high, and it was a rare event, no, he called it the Great Wall of Bohol. No? So that's ingenuity, no? Trying to find something, make it a source of livelihood from a disaster event. So we can do that. No? We have to innovate. We have to be thinking all the time to find ways to solve the impacts, solve the harsh impacts of disasters. And more recently, in 2017, we have this map showing that community as exposed to hazards, but this map was not used. That means that we need really to go out there and bring the science to the communities, to the barangays. So, are you willing to volunteer and go to the barangays in Tawi-Tawi or in Marawi, or to teach them of all of these hazard maps, to show them where the safe areas are and where the dangerous areas are? We need people to share all of this information. And we try to use all kinds of media platforms like Twitter, like Facebook, like the internet to teach people, but it's not enough. There needs to be some kind of engagement. And if they see young people, students from FEU going down to them, they feel that they are loved. And they engage, they talk to you. And when they talk to you, they get more aware of the disasters. So that is what we need. So if we can organize people to mainstream all of the scientific information down to barangay level, that should be best.
there are many laws that are related to disaster risk reduction. NOAA is about, please visit the site. Okay, that's a map of the Philippines. You can see the satellite information, the clouds, the red, yellow, and white clouds refer to rain. So you can see the Philippines and the vicinities where it rains. It also shows the Pag-asa track. No need to read the advisories every 6 hours. There are rainfall sensors deployed all over the country that stream data every 15 minutes. Either you can look at them one by one or just look at the map and see where it's raining. So like for example, if it's raining here, you know that that watershed will experience flooding. And when there's that kind of information, you must know where to go. The red places are areas of floods. These are crowdsourced information to validate the simulated floods. And then we also have landslide hazard maps for the entire country shown at high resolution. And for debris flows, so that people can avoid the debris flows, those ones that I showed. Storm surges as well. So all over the Philippines, the 5th longest coastline, we have storm surge inundation maps. And it's available for any part of the country. Unfortunately, the floods are not yet complete, but for landslides and storm surges, they're complete. So you can plot exposed areas like schools, like where dengue happens, police stations, etc., hospitals, and see whether these infrastructure or these institutions are at risk from a particular type of hazard. Like for example, these areas, they must be aware, these schools must be aware that there's a chance that they will get flooded. Okay? They must know the risk if they don't want to get out in that place. Philippine Disaster Risk Assessment, wherein every time there's a typhoon that enters the Philippine area of responsibility, everybody meets up. No? All agencies concerned with disasters meet up and they discuss. And the reason why they discuss is because they want to prepare for the incoming hazards. And they know that the warnings that should be given are the warnings that are hazard-specific, area-focused, and time-bound. So the way they used it was, okay, for example, when they see that it's raining in a certain place and the water level increases, you can alarm the people. So water level that that is recorded without any rain is actually more or less at a certain height. No? But when there's a severe weather disturbance, it goes up, and then when it suddenly goes up, that's when the disaster strikes. The trick to avoid the disaster is to catch the water level while it's on the rise. So if you have sensors that give you an idea of where it's raining, and then you look at the water level sensor from upstream, you know that you have at least about 3 to 6 hours, sometimes 12 hours lead time to evacuate. And that was used in the past, no? In PIDRA, to provide hazard-specific, area-focused, and time-bound warnings. And when the DRN officer was called at around 12 o'clock, peak floods happened at 6:10. So there was a lead time. And before the peak floods happened, the DRN officer and the local government unit was already able to take them away from the hazards. So just to explain further how to do that warning. So for example, from the sensors, there's a record of rainfall. Now it's colored. The term is contouring. No? From the sensor record, you contour. It's yellow there, it's blue. Yellow means 300 to 400 millimeters of rain. In the UK, when they talk about 100 millimeters of rain, that's the type of rain that will cause a flood and will devastate an entire village. That's in the UK. But during Habagat in 2012, in 2013, we had rainfall in Metro Manila that reached about 1,063 millimeters. 10 times more than what the British people fear. So we are actually, in some way, resilient. This one is 300. No? So as shown in that color, the scale says 300 to 400. So if it rains in the mountains, the water will not all seep through the ground. Some will run off on the surface. And when they run off, they enter into streams, enter into rivers, okay, and eventually end up into the sea. Okay? So if the community is here, vegan is there. If the community is here and you record rainfall at a certain instance to be more than 100 millimeters, in this case 300 to 400 millimeters, you have enough time to avoid the flood which will come 4 to 6 hours later. Okay? And that is the use of technology. You know? It's called as an early warning system. And we need to put that in place, because if we don't put that in place, then there's no warning system. If there's no warning system, we are caught unaware. Another case happened in Cagayan de Oro. This was on December 4, 2012. So this sensor recorded rainfall that caused the river to go up. From this level, from 1 meter to 8 meters in the span of 1 hour. 1 hour tumaas ng 8 meters. Do you know how high 8 meters is? That's 2 floors. Where else will that water go but to the sea? And before it reaches the sea, it will have to pass through Cagayan de Oro, which was devastated a year earlier in 2011. But despite the high water levels and the floods rushing in very quickly, it's called as a flash flood. By the time it came rushing towards Cagayan de Oro, they were already warned because of technology. There was an early warning system. And when the floods came rushing in, all of the people were just in the hills trying to view that hazard. So these are the landslides, okay, mga disasters that happened. Ever since nagkaroon ng Project NOAA, these are disasters that happened, disasters that were averted. But up to Vinta. No? But there were also some that happened after 2012, like the Pablo landslide, like the storm surge of Haiyan, and these Urduha and Vinta tropical storms that devastated many towns in Biliran, as well as Mindanao, respectively. In avoiding disasters, there are two types, there are two key elements, warning and response. Warning is the responsibility of government. It must be accurate, reliable, timely, and understandable. Okay? But no amount of good warning or accurate warning will work if you don't take action. Diba? O nag-warning dun sa, ano man tawag dun sa, yung app na yun, meron kayong emergency alert. O winarning kayo, did you take action? Did you, yung 3 o'clock, tumindig ka ba o tinignan mo lang kung may baha sa labas? Hindi ba? Tama. So, may warning, but you didn't even bother to stand up. Correct? Am I correct? No. Did you hear that alarm? No. You don't have a cell phone? Meron. Nokia. So, you didn't even bother. So, what about the others? Diba? So, with a warning, which is the responsibility of government, there must be corresponding appropriate response, which is your response. And your response must be appropriate. Not responding, sleeping, and being warned, not even bothering to look outside, that's not appropriate. But sometimes, if you do that, sometimes people evacuate. But you need maps to tell you where to evacuate. Yeah? And sometimes people go to evacuation centers that are the places where they die. Okay? So maps are very important. Like for example, in Tacloban, there was a storm surge warning 2 days in advance. 2 days in advance. But the maps that were provided to them 2 years before, which was used by the LGU, showed the storm surge inundation of the coastal area here, 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 here. Wala dito, wala dito, wala dyan. Okay pala dun eh. Oh, may storm surge pero hindi naman pala babae. Lagyan natin ang evacuation center dito. Kung saan nakaturo yun. This map is called as a deterministic map, the one to your left. Left. And it's based on interviews. So, interviewing kita, nagkaroon na ba ng storm surge dito? Gano'ng mataas? Hanggang dito lang. Hindi umabot dito. Wala ditong storm surge. And they make it into a map. So, it's based on the experience of the community. Not that I'm saying that it's not good data, but it's probably not sufficient. It's necessary to collect the data from the people, but it's not sufficient. Because what happened during Yolanda was an event that was bigger than what they remember. Correct? Because this was a bigger event than what they knew. And therefore, they were caught off guard. They were surprised. Pag marami na surprise, anong mangyayari? No. Diba? What we needed before Yolanda struck was a kind of map called as a probabilistic hazard map. It's multi-scenario. It depicts the small storm surge, the big storm surges, the bigger ones, and the Yolanda type storm surge. And had we had this kind of map, a probabilistic hazard map, before Yolanda came, we could have advised all of those people who went to evacuation centers. Or we could have advised people to move away 2 to 3 kilometers away from the coastline. But we did not have those. So the warning gave an absolute value of the height, but did not give the inundation extent, the inland inundation. It was a warning of an absolute height in a relative landscape. Okay, so we need these kinds of maps. We didn't have it kasi wala tayong technology. When it happened. But now we do have it. No? We invested billions of pesos to get the technology, LiDAR, and to train young scientists to do the manual work, to run these simulations, to create this kind of maps that would tell us, that could have told us that these places are dangerous. And 80%, 70 to 80% of the evacuation centers got inundated by storm surges. Hundreds of people died in those evacuation centers. I'll give you another example. This is a deterministic map, single scenario, based on interviews. And sabi, yellow refers to low susceptibility to landslide. This is an official map, by the way. So let's put the evacuation center here because amongst all of the places, that's the lowest hazardous area, the lowest susceptibility to hazards. Let's put the evacuation center there. But of course, after the disaster, after it happened, many people died in that place, Barangay Antap. The map was changed because it already happened. It's part of the historical record already. So it got transformed into high susceptibility to flooding. Okay, this is Barangay Antap, that one. You can see that the river flows here. It's a small river, relatively small river. So when the people were transferred to that place as an evacuation site, I mean, that river does not really become big. No? It's just like that. You can stay here. This is a safe place. It lacked science. Kasi the science and the technology could have shown that that place was dangerous. But science was not used. The technology was not used. What happened was, when Typhoon Boba came in, it rained, and then it generated this big debris flow, a flood. It's like a flood, but instead of water, it was 80% boulders, 20% rocks. So it overwhelmed Barangay Antap. Each of these dots here, gray and white dots, these are rocks. Yeah, sometimes as big as that. 3 meters below that man is the evacuation center, where 566 people died. They went to the evacuation center. They were warned. That's why they went to the evacuation center. But what happened? The response was not appropriate. They went to the wrong place because the hazard map that was used did not reflect the bigger event than what they knew or than what they remembered. So the lesson there is that when we make maps that are supplemented by science and technology. Local knowledge is good. It's necessary but not sufficient. We must supplement it with science and technology to depict hazards of the future, to depict climate change impacts. When we talk about probabilistic maps, it's multi-scenario as opposed to single scenario. And in the Philippine practice, yung single scenario natin is the scenario that is what is the worst that is remembered by the community. But what if it is bigger than what the community remembers? Diba? So we need multi-hazard, multi-scenario maps. These are called probabilistic maps. So we have a storm surge that is small, a storm surge that is bigger, storm surge that is much bigger, landslide, storm surge Gayulanda, that was landslides, then floods that are small, bigger, and then we put them together. You have a multi-scenario, multi-hazard map, probabilistic hazard maps. And despite that, na puro pula, ang dami pa rin mga areas that are safe, those in gray. Okay? That's where you cite the evacuation center. Not in the red place. But you will not see that safe or dangerous areas if you don't use the technology and if you don't use the science. And because of our investment, we are now able to do that. So this is interview based, no? This is low landslide, this is high landslide, low flood. That's the deterministic. Pagka gumamit kayo ng probabilistic, you make a good depiction of the landscape at high resolution. You are able to know the elevation. You can plot all of the elements in that area, even the land use map, and you can show a small flood, a bigger flood, a much bigger flood. So, multi-scenario pag sinabing probabilistic. Bigger scenarios as well than what the community knows. Okay? So, for development planning, that's very important. Kasi the interview-based one will tell that community or the planner, or let's put the evacuation center here or the school there. Diba? Kasi that's, the people in the community remember that it does not flood in that area. Pag mas malaki na yung ilan, a bigger event than what has happened in the past, you are going to kill all. Tama? And that can only be shown using advanced technologies. That can only be depicted if you use advanced technologies, okay, which makes use of science, our understanding on the physics of flow of water and stability of rocks in the case of landslides. We have been doing local climate change action plans for all communities. Okay? And dami-dami communities. This is their land use plan. You can put the flood, the storm surge, the landslide hazards, and their land use, their planning, put them all together, and you can see the plans in relation to hazards. Okay? So, ito yung settlement area. It has a hazard. Okay ba dyan magplano ng settlement? How about this settlement area? Is it good? Yes, di ba? So, you don't need to imagine. You can already visualize and see where the dangerous and where the safe places are. Correct? Okay. So in planning for settlement in a particular community, that's what you choose. And you chose that because the information was made available. And it's very clear. For agriculture, okay, binabaha nga itong area na ito in some parts but not all parts. Then let's plant in the non-flood prone areas. But for flood prone areas, for climate change, we plant crops that are resilient to floods. Diba? And for tourism, Calao Viewing Center. This is an actual example. Municipality in Leyte. It's a bird viewing center. It's dangerous. Sinasabi. It's very dangerous. Landslides due to heavy rainfall may happen there anytime. But we know that the storms don't come in every day. Diba? Don't pass through every day. It's about 2 to 3 times in a year, sometimes 5. So what you do is you plan for an evacuation center there, a backup center. So back up when there's a storm, and when it's in the South China Sea, pag nag-exit na, go back, business as usual at the shortest possible time. That's how you plan communities. And when you plan it, you don't just plan it for settlement and agriculture and for tourism. You plan it for agriculture, coastal water health, forestry, biodiversity, the environment, energy, education, tourism, infrastructure, settlement, and mining sectors. Imagine if you can plan a community and all communities of the country and plan it across all sectors, doing anticipatory planning, there will be true and real development of each and every municipality of our country. Diba? Kasi they will progress unhampered by the impacts of hazards. Don't be intimidated by this graph. No? This is just accumulated rainfall per day. This is the frequency. No? So once every 100, for example, 280 millimeters of rain as recorded by Pag-asa. This is the historical record of Pag-asa, the black line. But we've heard about climate change. And sinabi sa climate change, if there's going to be impacts of global warming, one of those impacts will be more intense cyclones, bringing more rain. So there are projections, and these can be modeled. So yung dating 280 millimeters of rain, when you project it to a climate change scenario ng 2049, or a climate change scenario by 2079, yung dating 280 millimeters that happens once every 100 years becomes more frequent. Mas mararanasan natin yan, it's going to be once every 12.5 years. So with climate change, ano mas mangyayari? Mas lalaki yung problema natin, not only in scale, but in frequency as well. Diba? Mas mahirap yun, ha? Madalas mangyayari yan. So we have to handle it more frequently. We have to deal with it more frequently. Sabi din sa climate change, yung dating once every 100 years, na pagka once every 100 years, imbis na 280, magiging 400 millimeters. Ang dami yung ulan. Pero how do you translate that into planning? So, I give that knowledge of 280 na once every 100, magiging 400. You're the municipal planner. You're the architect. You're the urban planner. Binigay ko sa inyo, 280 magiging 400. Oy, thank you, ha? Salamat, daming ulan. Okay. But what will you do with that information? How can you plan against the hazards? The rain is not the hazard. May nakita na ba kayong naulanan na namatay? Naambunan o kaya nabuhusan kahit malakas na namatay? Have you seen one? So is rain the hazard? Hindi, di ba? We must plan against the hazard. So somebody must translate that increase in rainfall into a map like this. Di ba? That when translated, yung rain into a flood, you can see the river and the floodplains inundated. And what height of flood will happen. And you can see that this subdivision is okay, but this subdivision is not when that climate change event happens, extreme rainfall. This place is dangerous, but these places are good, even with increased rainfall due to climate change. Tama? So, we may want to think that preparing for hazards na historical rainfall, yung alam natin, no? Yung na-record ng Pag-asa, yan yung may rainfall. Preparing for the impacts of rainfall that will transform into floods as disaster risk reduction. Correct? Kasi, alam mo na yung flood eh. Alam mo yung rain, this will bring up flood. You prepare for this historical record. It's DRR, disaster risk reduction. But, if you prepare for rains that are projected into the future, bigger events of the future, due to climate change, you are doing preparation for future disasters, but with climate change impacts. And to address those future disasters, you need to plan well. You need to adapt to the climate change impacts. And it's called climate change adaptation. But since you're dealing with disasters as well, natural hazards, you call it climate change adaptation, disaster risk reduction. If we plan each and every community against the hazards, against climate change impacts, across all sectors, we do anticipatory planning. We are developing that community away from hazards, away from disasters, unhampered by natural disasters or natural hazards. If we do that for all 1,634 municipalities of the Philippines, we not only develop each and every community, we get them free from disasters, and they develop, they progress. And if all of these municipalities progress, our country develops, our country progresses. Don't you like that? Don't you like that? Without being the president, you can get the country to develop. Would you like to be part of that effort? Wouldn't you like the Philippines to be great and develop? We use the disaster platform, we use that bill to develop our country using probabilistic hazard maps and probabilistic risk assessment and local climate change action plans. we make use of this concept, reverse it, make that disaster platform work for our country and make our country develop using science. Thank you.
Hello, Tams. Welcome back to FEU. I am Oliver Brioso from the Mathematics Department and Education Technology Office. We are here at the FEU Interactive Laboratory, and this is the FEU Teacher Experience. Hi, Tams. Today, I will share with you some of the education technology tools that you can use to enhance your presentation for your online class. One of the objectives that FEU has for their students is the enhancement of digital competencies needed in the 21st century. Well, today, my presentation will show you that you don't need to look far to enhance these skills. It's quite easy as long as you are open to learning how to navigate new applications. As a Tamaraw student, you have an access to the complete Microsoft suite like Word, PowerPoint, Excel, Publisher, OneDrive, and so many applications therein. And you can download this on up to 5 devices for free. That's for free, students. So for today's lecture, I would like to introduce to you the various applications available online or for download on the App Store that can help you in your online classes this coming semester. And first of our education technology tools that I can share with you is Canva. Canva is an online presentation publishing application that you can use or either download on your phone or use online. It is easy to use because it is intuitive and most importantly, Tams, it's free. And second in our list of education technology tools is Venngage. Like Canva, Venngage is used to enhance your presentations, but is geared towards the creation of infographics. You can integrate your pre-created Excel file where your data is, and Venngage will automatically design your output for you. That's so easy. Aside from Canva and Venngage, we have Microsoft Sway. Microsoft Sway is an online application which is an alternative to Microsoft PowerPoint. The transitions, animations, and the pictures are already integrated and interactive, so you don't need to break a sweat. You can just input the content and you are ready to go. And lastly, we have Mentimeter. It is a crowdsourced application used when you need more of an interactive take on your presentation. It is useful when your presentation needs the input of your audience. That's it, Tams. That's all for today's FEU Teacher X series. I hope that we were able to walk you through the FEU classroom experience. And of course, more of that when you officially start your classes this August. If you have questions about today's episode, comment down below and we'll answer them in the next episode. Once again, this has been Oliver Brioso for FEU Teacher X series. See you soon, Tams.